Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 227, and what a week it's been. Mamma mia, retail investors were panic selling all day yesterday, letting go of the bag, and all of this was apparently triggered by tariff news and a jobs report that came out on Friday, or so they say. We're finally getting sell pressure that is coupled with a narrative, which we want, because then you know it's a trap. And this all happening after the most bullish monthly close that we've seen all year. And retail is here getting liquidated over the weekend. Classic market maker moves, but for the Wolfpack here, you should know it's just another day in the Matrix. And I get it, it's scary to see these types of moves, but haven't we been through this before? It literally just happened at the end of June in response to the US strike on the Iranian bases, which also happened over a weekend, just like we're seeing now. So with that out of the way, hopefully this calms the nerves of any nervous wolves here. And since we're getting this type of price action to kick off a fresh new month, and not just any month, but the month I've been putting emphasis on this whole cycle due to the timing leading up to the next eclipse season in September. This means we have a lot to cover today, especially in these charts, since what we just experienced over the past 3 days has been nearly identical to how the month of August kicked off last year in 2024. And for today's podcast, I'll actually be covering the charts of XLM, HBAR, and Doge, in addition to the 4 altcoins that you guys voted on here in last week's Red Pill, since we are going through this corrective energy right now, and many here in our community have been requesting a follow-up on those projects since my last What I'm Investing in special. So don't worry, I got your back. We'll be covering those today, and naturally we'll be focusing more on the charts than on a decode today, since you're already well aware of my key dates ahead of August 11th through 13th, covered in the past Red Pills here. But for those that are new here to the Wolfpack, first of all, welcome. It's so great to have you here with us. For those that are new here, I'll be doing a quick recap for y'all so that everyone is caught up to speed and so that you can all be thoroughly prepared for the week ahead. Now, before we get started, make sure to get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little earlier in the day, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice if it's getting a little later out there in the Matrix. And also make sure to comment below this post here on Patreon to vote on the altcoins that you'd like me to cover in next week's Red Pill podcast. But before you comment, just make sure that you use the search function here on Patreon to check that I have not covered that project in at least 3 months. So if it's been over 3 months since I've reviewed that altcoin, or if I've never covered that altcoin before, as long as it has at least 1 year of chart history, you can go ahead and comment below with the name of the altcoin and include the ticker symbol next to it as well. And whatever submissions get the most likes from the members here in our community, those top 4 projects will be selected for next week's Red Pill. Also, just a quick update, since I was getting a bunch of requests to keep this flash sale going on my website, the one that officially ended last night. I've decided to keep this flash sale live for our mastermind community here, only exclusively for you guys for the next 24 hours. So if you're interested in taking advantage of this opportunity to get the biggest discount available on my website since Black Friday, this is your chance to head over to watersabove.com/MM2025. The public page has since been closed down, so only you guys here can access this private link for the next 24 hours to get this exclusive discount. And make sure to use the promo code at checkout, 25MMC flash, all uppercase. You could simply do this by just copying and pasting it. Go ahead over to any of these. When you press buy now, you'll automatically go to a checkout page. Go to enter coupon code and you could paste this in, press apply, and it will give you the discount. And this is an even bigger discount than the one that you guys usually get here as Patreon supporters. So definitely make sure to take advantage of this. It'll probably be my last sale all the way up until Black Friday later this year. And you'll also be able to find this private link and the promo code below this video in the description and in the pinned comment as well. And I'm truly so grateful for all of your continued support. Now, moments ago, I mentioned the key dates of August 11th through 13th. So let me just quickly recap the significance of this time frame, starting with the date of August 11th, being when Mercury stations direct again. As you can see over here, this is the current Mercury retrograde phase that we're in from July 18th through August 11th. So this is when Mercury will be stationing direct again, concluding the Mercury retrograde phase that we're in now, and from August 11th until around August 24th, we'll be in the shadow phase. And this is significant because this will happen right around the upcoming August new moon, which you can see is on August 23rd. It's pretty much all happening at the same time. So this will be a very important new moon that I've been talking about all year, since it's the final new moon before eclipse season in September, which will kick off with a total lunar eclipse on September 7th. The eclipse that I've been talking about for pretty much 15 months now. And here we are closing in on just about a month away from this very powerful lunar eclipse. Now, I want to head over to this chart over here. This is the Mercury retrograde chart that we've been focusing on a lot lately. And we're just going to quickly revisit this Mercury retrograde analysis since we just got this correction. And now we could confirm that we're in the, quote, 75% of the time Mercury retrograde iterations that I've reviewed with you all here in the recent Red Pill podcast from last month. And in the less common 25% of the time, we effectively see a bullish Mercury retrograde, which is clearly not the case this time around. But this is something that I prepared you all for because I mentioned that it's more common to see a sideways Mercury retrograde than it is to see a bullish Mercury retrograde. And also another thing to mention is that we still have a little bit more time to go where we can actually recover from this. And I'm going to quickly review the reasons why. And everything that's going on right now is actually very similar to what happened last year. Remember, I kind of mentioned it in the intro of today's video, because you see right here during this sideways phase for Bitcoin, when it topped out in March of 2024, we were sideways all the way until November. Well, the deepest correction we got during all of that was in the beginning of August, literally the August new moon. But I just want you to focus on how all of this was triggered at the very beginning of August. And it's keeping me open-minded to this being an exact repeat, because tomorrow, Monday, would be a potential pivot point. And we'll know this, of course, when we see the traditional markets open up tomorrow. And I will cover that a little bit later in today's Red Pill. But getting back to what we have today. We have a correction happening right now, so we know this is more like the 75% of iterations, and this isn't bad news because there's a couple of things that have unfolded that are actually very technically sound and were kind of better to happen. They were going to happen no matter what. We were going to retest 112K Bitcoin no matter what. If we pumped immediately, we would have retested it later. So getting these things out of the way now instead of later is always better, because that means that the corrections are going to be way less violent. And I know a lot of people are freaking out right now about this correction, but dude, we're seeing XRP backtest 270 something. We could be at $3 by tomorrow. And just consider that during the June 22nd correction, we were breaking below $2. So this can literally just be another repeat of this kind of late month shakeout. And I think they're very similar, what we're seeing, because it's tied to a narrative. And lately, when you're in a bull run, you'll notice that they need a heavy narrative to blame to give some sort of, reason for these corrections. And that's what this whole year has been, since Trump's inauguration, to the tariff crash that we had from Liberation Day, to the lower low that we had in June on a lot of altcoins. It's just kind of been, what can we blame this month vibes? And here we are. So I think this isn't negative. I think it's a lot more positive than it might feel. And I want to emphasize that a lot, especially very early on here in today's podcast. I get it. When we have these shakeouts, a lot of people get tense, they're worried, they're fearful, but that's how the market maker wants you to feel. The market maker wants you to feel like shit right now, you know? So here at Waters Above, we're doing everything we can to stay neutral and to see the big picture and to see it for what it is, right? We don't want to be like typical retail. We're in an uptrend in the stock market and in gold and in Bitcoin, and nothing so far for Bitcoin especially has shown us that we're overbought, that we've just been like on a straight parabola to the upside. That is definitely not the case. You can see here daily RSI is at 40 something right now. If we were to go to monthly RSI, you're going to see we haven't even broken out above 80 yet this whole cycle. Whilst in past cycles, it was very typical for us to get to the 90s on monthly RSI. We're not even close yet. So you guys know my take on this for the most part. I'm not like looking for too much more upside for Bitcoin other than this 123 that we've gotten recently. I've alluded to potentially this 130 to 145K territory because a lot of people are expecting 150. And I've shared my reasons why I would kind of look at that as a trap, that 150 area, because it's too perfect, it's too flat, it's too expected. And the market maker loves to throw curveballs, just like what we've recently got over the past 48 hours. So I don't want to jump around too much, but I think what we're seeing right now is quite positive from a technical perspective. And the fact that it's happening over the weekend and a lot of the shit that we've seen lately when it comes to the most fearful moments in the crypto market has always happened on a weekend. So let's stay clear, guys. Let's look at this for what it is, keep the emotions on the sideline, and we'll hold that energy for the rest of today's podcast. Thank me later. So we're getting the more sideways Mercury retrograde. I think we've already gotten that out of the way. And what this means for us in plain English is that we tend to finish off Mercury retrograde around the same price as the first daily close we had when Mercury initially stationed retrograde, And that was on July 18th in this example. And this time around, that would be about 118K for Bitcoin. So you can just mark off, you can see I have the red mark across the screen for you guys already. Around this date of August 11th, that could be in the cards, 118K Bitcoin, regardless of the fact that we just came down to 112. Now, keep this in mind. This isn't something to be so precise about, meaning you can't expect an exact closing price on August 11th of 118K. Of course, this analysis is more so that you can have an expectation far in advance of what Bitcoin is likely to do during Mercury retrograde, which, by the way, that happens 3 to 4 times per year. So having this knowledge is incredibly powerful. It's an incredibly powerful tool to have as an investor. Just think about how many people don't even know about this. Most people don't even know about the moons. Most people don't know about eclipses. So just with a couple of tools here, you guys can get rid of a lot of unnecessary indicators and have an idea of where the market's energetics will be during certain times of the month. And that's really a superpower, to be honest. I get it though. There are people who like indicators and they want to make things fancy and they want to have, maybe day trade markets, and that's fine too. There's members in our community that are amazing at that kind of stuff and they definitely, that's their strong suit. But also sometimes when you have too many things going on, you get too much in your own head. And when you get too much in your own head, then you start to disregard the bigger picture stuff, the energetics, which are the most important, in my opinion. Now, this is why we combine both here. We're doing esoteric stuff with the exoteric. We use the TA, we use the esoteric, and combine it. This is what makes what we're doing here quite powerful. And it's something that I think I've been doing a good job at simplifying for all you guys. There's nothing too crazy or too out of the ordinary going on here. So I just wanted to mention that it's not that you should be expecting a perfect hit of 118K Bitcoin on a daily close on August 11th, but I do anticipate during this month us to recover back and swipe through that liquidity for sure. So now that we've had this correction back to 112, this is actually good that we're finally back testing the prior highs in the range from May 22nd. And not only did we backtest this prior resistance, but we also filled the CME gap this past Friday that was around the 114K level. And with this weekend correction now, we've also come back to around the same daily RSI that we were when we had this correction over here on June 22nd. So you can see when I hold my cursor here, we were getting an RSI read slightly below 40. It's the same. And this was also a huge hit to the altcoins, and it was also when the altcoins bottomed. You can see the following Monday we pivoted from there and we went up. So that's good to see that this was our last extreme in the data over here when considering altcoins for sure. And we've recently backtested a similar RSI level for Bitcoin. And we're seeing the same hit on the altcoins regarding a percentage loss. So that's what I mean by that's good to see with our last extreme in the data. Also, another thing that I've noticed is that lately, the 22nd day of each month has been significant for the Bitcoin price. It's kind of strange, but we have over here May 22nd. I know it's a little noisy. Let me turn off everything for you guys. We have May 22nd was the original high, and we topped there. And then we went on to have a correction down to June 22nd as our bottom. So we have a top on the 22nd of May, bottom on the 22nd of June. And then over recently, last month, July 22nd, it's our current all-time high daily close. It's the highest daily close we have across all exchanges. It's pretty interesting, right? Now, why I'm saying that's interesting is it makes me think about what's to come on August 22nd, especially since that will be the day before the new moon. And it'll be during a Friday, so it'll be happening whilst the traditional markets are open. And Bitcoin is known to have something that I call the August new moon flash correction. I brought it up a little bit ago. I've actually been covering this every year since I started the channel over 4 years ago. And it's been a theme for Bitcoin pretty much going back to its first couple years of trading. So well over a decade worth of data now to prove this. For some reason, Bitcoin likes to correct heavily on the August new moon. So keep that in mind because I can totally see Bitcoin, for example, slicing up to around the 130K level, around 130K, before August 22nd would make the most sense, and then a sharp correction after that, similar to the August new moon in 2020, for example. So we're talking about this one right here. Apologies. So here we are. I'm going to turn on the moons, and you'll see what I mean. So this is the month of July into August, and you could see we actually topped the 48 hours within the new moon of August, but then right there, 24 hours before the new moon, we had a major correction that started, and it went even deeper into the month of September. So we pumped into the August new moon, and then we had this Twin Towers candle, and then we corrected again into September on the September full moon for one last shakeout before Bitcoin went into price discovery and we had the true alt season. But also there's a chance that it could play out the way it did in 2017, which is an example that I've been talking a lot about lately, because in August of 2017, we had a Mercury retrograde, and I talked a lot about this a couple of red pills ago. So here we are. I just mentioned that we could have it play out kind of like August 2017, where this is a little bit more elusive. You see the August new moon. Now, it looks like we didn't have much of a correction, but we actually did. This was an almost 20% correction from topping out about 4 days before the August new moon and into about 24 to 48 hours around the August new moon. It got all bought back up though immediately, but this was still a dramatic move to the downside. So I want you to keep this in mind, that we could have something like this happen, which would be awesome, by the way, because this would get a lot of people to freak out, right? And then you would have more FOMO coming in with this absorption candle. So I am considering this as well, but they're both the same outcome, right? They're both the same concept. It's a bullish move, right? I'm just giving you some ideas of how it could play out. You know, it's like prints in the snow. You see a bear print, you see an elk print, a moose print. Like, you know, they're all different than a human footprint, right? They're all kind of just showing you like different forms of the same kind of idea, right? You see human prints, you're not so worried. You see bear prints, you're like, not so good. So we're kind of looking at it from that perspective, but ultimately I'm still bullish. I'm not changing my stance on that. I think this recent monthly close we had looked awesome. There was nothing about it that showed me we've topped. I'm not getting worried about this weekend shakeout at all. And if I start to see things go wrong, I will absolutely rush to share a update with you guys. But for now, it's not looking too bad at all. And anyways, coming back to this, we could have a situation where we have topping out before the new moon, and then we get this correction around 48 hours around the new moon, probably after, because that tends to be the pattern. Or another thing to say is like get out a couple days before the new moon, and then we could have, of course, this additional rally would show us that we're quite overheated, probably be seeing bearish divergences, and then right here, this was a 40% correction for Bitcoin into the month of September. So it's the September correction is a lot more devastating, right? Again, September corrections, especially this year, are likely, especially with how overheated the stock market is starting to look in general. So even if it's just a 15 to 20% correction, during any of these moments, whether it's initiated on the August new moon, which by the way is at the end of August, so who cares if it happens then versus a week later, it's still kind of the similar time frame. And it's that we move up into it no matter what. It's still expected at least a 15 to 20% correction for Bitcoin, most likely. And what we'd like to see during this whole move, whether it turns out to be like this or whether it turns out to be like this example over here, or like this example over here with September new moon, we would like to see Bitcoin dominance crashing. That's, of course, the moment we're all waiting for, and I'll get back to that a little bit later. Now, speaking of this iteration right here, we have September 2021, where you'll see that we pumped all the way into the September new moon, followed by a correction into the following new moon. It was textbook. This was about 25%, so you can assume it was a pretty big deal. A lot of shaken out retail here, but then we went up actually into the final move up for the last Mercury retrograde of the year. So this was a Mercury retrograde in Q4, and I want you to take note of this because especially we're getting this sideways Mercury retrograde today. I want you to consider that Q4 is a very powerful time when we have a Mercury retrograde. I've already discussed this for you guys with you guys, but during bull run years, the final Mercury retrograde of the year, the one that happens in Q4, is almost exclusively bullish. So this is something that actually keeps my mind open to a true cycle peak for Bitcoin in November this year, which would just be a continuation of the pattern of Bitcoin topping out in Q4 of the post-halving year. Or another way of saying it would be Bitcoin hits an all-time high peak every 4 years. It's the way to simplify that. As the first notable cycle peaked in November 2013, then in December 2017, then again in November 2021, right here. And now we're talking about potentially November 2025, 4 years after this peak in November 2021. And this will also be when we'll have a Mercury retrograde, right over here, from the dates of November 9th through November 29th. Now, just to recap this current Mercury retrograde phase that we're in, since I mentioned a potential 130K Bitcoin later this month leading into the August new moon, or perhaps we hit that 130K into the first couple days of September, similar to that last example that I showed you, before the total lunar eclipse would make the most sense. But either way, I just wanted to remind you that this scenario is something I told you all about during the recent Red Pill, where I covered the thorough Mercury retrograde analysis for you all, because this is the style of the move that happened in August of 2017. We were actually just looking at this a little bit ago. So we had from August 13th through September 5th. I just showed you this moments ago, but keep in mind that this same move is in the cards. Very similar play, which would make this month of August a hell of a roller coaster ride considering the way it's kicked off just a couple days ago with this correction that we're seeing. I'm sure you can all agree with that. And the main reason I'm entertaining these patterns from back in 2017, just as a reminder, is because so far there are so many similarities we have with this cycle, specifically in the Bitcoin chart and also in the XRP chart as well. So if this were to play out this way, that would mean we'd have a more bullish shadow phase when Mercury stations direct on August 11th. So we went over this during that Mercury retrograde analysis, where we have this shadow phase in the gray white area over here, and that would be from August 11th through August 24th, leading into the August new moon. So we have a couple of things in alignment that could kind of prove this. And then also we had a pretty bullish shadow phase in our last Mercury retrograde. Of course, we had eclipse season before the Mercury retrograde was complete, whilst this time we're going to have Mercury retrograde and the shadow phase completed before we have the eclipse season. So it's kind of like a little bit more reversed in energy. But overall, we had a bullish shadow phase the last time. Also at Q4 into the shadow phase, we did top, and effectively at the time, those were our all-time highs in December 2024. And then over here, we had this January 2024 shadow phase, also quite bullish. We had over here January 2023, quite bullish. Also, we topped in the shadow phase over here of October, effectively October 2021. We also topped at the very start of the shadow phase. I mean, we just call it the end of Mercury retrograde. And then over here in Q4, again, a bullish shadow phase. Over here in July, a bullish shadow phase. So we've seen this a couple of times before. Now, that's only one element in everything else going on here. We also have the August new moon, which has always been incredibly elusive. But moreover, we kind of have an expectation to rise into that new moon and then sell off around it, around that 48 hours or so. And then we also have the September 7th total lunar eclipse about a month out from now. And we'll dedicate a podcast to that more as we get a little closer. We've been talking about it so much, but we need data to work with. And right now, all I'm seeing is Bitcoin backtesting the prior highs of May. So nothing is broke structure. If anything, I just feel like this was something that needed to happen. It's kind of good that I got it out of the way. So with the full moon coming up next Saturday, we'll be in that energy during the next red pill on Sunday, August 10th. I'm looking forward to that. And with Mercury stationing direct the following day, during the next week's red pill, we should be recovering from this recent shakeout over the past couple days. And unless there's some wild announcement on Monday, I'd expect by this Tuesday, August 5th, these markets should be finishing up this temper tantrum in response to tariff deadline and the jobs report that came out on Friday, or the FOMC stuff, even though market expected what would happen in that FOMC. We knew there would be no rate cut. So, but of course tomorrow, August 4th, Monday, could be very volatile, especially since the traditional markets definitely overreacted to everything that went down after the FOMC. But the main reason I'm cautious during the week ahead is just because both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ have yet to backtest their prior macro resistance. So in plain English, if I just zoom out right here, I turn off everything, you're going to see that this was the prior top. And when we broke out of it, we have yet to backtest it, and we are getting close on this recent nosedive that we're seeing. So that's the only reason why I would be cautious. But guys, we've went through this before, where I've told you like in advance to anticipate the way that the market could be opening up. Let me just check my mind. Okay, we're good. And we've seen these sort of things play out before where we gap to the downside. We're like, for whatever reason, we're going to open around this top price. I'm not saying we're going to with certainty, but that like type of shit is in the cards just because of the energetics that we're working with right now. You know, like the market maker, the apex predator, they kind of have us in their talons. You know, they can say whatever they want to say. They can make up fake jobs reports numbers. They could tell you that Epstein is hanging out with Bill Clinton right now, and you know, in Mr. Rogers' old house and fucking Bob Ross is painting a picture of it. You know, they could just make up whatever they want. This is the world we live in. It's a fucking clown show. So getting back to how this can all go, I'm cautious for the week ahead because we have about 1.5 to 2.5% to the downside to backtest these prior highs on both the S&P and the NASDAQ. Okay? So this could be completed next week. And honestly, if that came in this week, I personally think that would be the most bullish case scenario, since a retest and a bounce at that level would be something similar to what happened in the C19 crash over here. So we got above this level and we had the retest, and then we continued up into September. So when we check out both of these charts, we can see about a 1.5 to 2%, 2.5% correction from this level. Would not be too much more to go. Again, Bitcoin and the crypto market love to be more extreme, so our correction could be completed already. We might have maybe a little tug to the downside, but we might not actually go any lower than where we already did yesterday. Again, this is kind of just the way the market balances out to all this drama. So again, the reason why I would entertain a backtest here is not only from a technical perspective, but because this happened back in the C19 crash after the V-shaped recovery. And so far, this recent tariff crash, the markets look nearly identical to how it crashed and recovered back in 2020. So until the pattern changes, we shouldn't overthink things. No matter what happens in the short term, the trend is up. So with that being said, let's get into these charts and review the setup into the week ahead, as well as our upcoming weekly close for the crypto market that's coming in later today. We're going to start with Bitcoin just to do some traditional analysis. As we've already said, we've backtested the May 22nd high, so a bounce from here would be incredibly bullish. But let's just look at some of our moving averages, see what's going on. So we have effectively backtested the daily chart, 55 simple. Holding that and closing above that is perfectly fine. Nothing weird at all. Also, another thing is where the EMAs are at. So we've started to close below the EMAs, but it's funny because with Bitcoin, every time we start closing below the EMAs, coupled with the RSI breaking below 50 and getting towards this 40 territory, it's always been a buy. So I'm not saying that that's 100% the case here, and I'm not going to personally buy Bitcoin at these prices. I already bought Bitcoin a while ago, so yeah, you guys can check out the what I'm buying and selling. I believe the last time that I bought Bitcoin heavy was 26,000, 25,000. So damn, that was a while ago, man. Yeah, that was a while ago. Shit. Whatever. Yeah, so buy Bitcoin when it's low, not at price discovery, right? Why wait to price discovery to buy something when you could buy it on a discount? So a lot of altcoins, that's still the case. And I think even for what we're about to touch on in a little bit with XLM and Hedera and Doge, yeah, man, for the people that feel like they missed out on XRP, even XRP has recently had a 25% correction. It's back tested some healthy levels that we needed to get out of the way. So nothing weird there. But anyways, getting back to this setup on the daily, it's starting to show weakness, but I do like the catch on the 55 simple moving average. To me, that's fine. Nothing to get worried about. Of course, I would start to get worried if we have closures below the 55 followed by a wolf cross to the downside. So if we were to get the 8 crossing below the 55, I don't like that. But guys, the last time that happened, that was like a definite buy. So when it's narrative driven and when it's just a bunch of like nonsense that's hitting the market out of nowhere, when we're in a bull trend, M2 is like continuing to move up. We know all of this stuff. Like there's money being printed everywhere. Like every central bank is cutting their interest rates. Like I don't think, yeah. Anyways, I don't want to rant and rave. I feel like I've gotten my point across, even though I'm pretty calm about this, obviously. Now we're looking at the weekly. I do love to see the 55 holding as a support now, going on for since 2023. So we're talking about the white moving average, of course. We can see that our EMA band is in bullish posture. So we have the 13 above the 21 above the 34, and we're holding on the 8. So we're holding on the 8 simple moving average on the weekly. Closing above here would be perfect. So this is nothing weird to me. Do we have a bi-weekly close coming in? Yes, we do. Okay, so let me just quickly make sure that this is an accurate, okay, because sometimes this index chart is a little wonky. Bi-weekly close, nothing weird. We're not even overbought. We're not even overbought. All the moving averages are in bullish posture. 8, 13, 20, 134, 55, 200 exponential, 200 simple. This is not anything to worry about. We just had a fucking all-time high monthly close with not too big of a wick to the upside. So I would not get worried about this at all. Typically, you get worried when you have these like red monthly closes in the uptrends because those seemingly are reversal time. So if you just look back at the last cycle when we got this doji over here on the monthly, that was clearly a lights out moment, but we had a eclipse season starting here. So we've talked many times about why that happened. Then over here, your red monthly close after the recovery, you went into a downtrend. Here, red monthly close, you went into a momentary sideways downtrend. Here, monthly close, a little bit of an elusive follow-up, but then again, bigger shakeout. This ended up being a 30-something% correction. Here, very, very important that what we're seeing that is different compared to where we are now, even though this didn't necessarily end on that monthly close pivot, is we had monthly RSI at 95. We're not even close. So this is not overheated. Here it's the same story. We had a monthly close with RSI at 95 on the monthly. Okay, same story over here, 95 on the monthly. I don't know if we'll get all the way back up there, even though in 2021 it got to 91.7. It's fucking close. I would say we can maybe get to 87, 88, 89. You know, Bitcoin's going to lose these extreme reads on things like the RSI. It's going to lose them because market cap's too high right now. The last time I checked, it was like 8th, 7th rank, still above silver. It's fucking crazy. It could push up tomorrow and get above Amazon, and it could clear the 5 spot by Thursday. So I do think it will surpass Apple for sure. That's definitely a possibility in my opinion. And closing this weekly above 114K would look very good right now. So on the analysis for the weekly chart, we're looking good. The Wyckoff is still in play. You can see that we're just extending out a little bit. This LPS, we would be having another LPS after an SOS, because the way that these accumulations or these reaccumulation schematics go is once you break out into this final phase, we would have SOSs followed by LPSs over and over again until price gets exhausted to the upside. And you'll know that price gets exhausted to the upside when you have very high RSI reads and you have euphoria. You know, you don't just have like crypto week, which is some random thing that only politicians and people that are like really in the know have an idea about. Like the average retail investor doesn't know what the fuck crypto week is. They don't know what the Genius Act is. They don't know what the Clarity Act is. They don't know about this stuff. So the euphoria phase is when when regular people are talking about it and they know, not just insiders or people that are like TA experts or traders or people that are watching crypto YouTube like you guys. So TA looks good on Bitcoin. Nothing weird here. The only thing I would say is on the weekly, if we were to start getting closures below this level at 100K, any weekly closes below 100K, which would be coupled by a close below the 34 exponential on the weekly, that would look bad. But for now, this is perfectly fine. All right, let's move on to Bitcoin dominance because, just quickly, let me just show you the gap that filled. You could see it right there. But we're looking at the CME chart right now for Bitcoin. And it's the daily. And we had a gap up here that was caused by the move between the 10th and 11th of July. And I go to the 4-hour, you'll see that this was thoroughly filled. We even wicked up to the top of the gap. And now, as of today, because we're trading around 114, we'd be opening around where this closed. So that's fine. I would rather Bitcoin just stay stable here and not move up too much. And then while staying stable and seeing Bitcoin dominance drop a little bit, but which I believe is the case today, yes, it is almost 0.5% down, then alts will recover quite dramatically. So we got this gap fill out of the way. The only other gap that we do need to be concerned about is the 92K level, which I do still feel it's likely that we push up one more time and fill that later with a much more drastic correction, for instance, in the month of September. It'd be weird for it to happen right now. Or it could happen after the August new moon. But remember, that's August 23rd. So we're talking by August 25th, there's a possibility for a flash crash down to those levels. But right now, I just don't see it. It would have to be a lot of random negative things. Yeah, I just don't see it personally. And I'm not trying to be like perma bullish. It's just I feel like we've been pretty bearish for altcoins for a while now. This recent shakeout was way too exaggerated in my opinion. So CME gap is filled. That's good to see. Back test of the local highs has been complete. That's good to see. And now just really quickly looking at Bitcoin dominance. We're going to look at Bitcoin dominance with this parallel channel because we are pretty much, I think, going to repeat this move over here. So I have the November 2024 through about, I guess, May fractal. And I don't think it's going to go this way personally, but I think we're going to start to make this shape where we have Bitcoin dominance potentially recover into the middle of this month, followed by a drawdown into the end of the month. So you can see that's around the August new moon. And then we have this chop until around August 21st, which gets back up to this top of the trend line by the next partial lunar eclipse. So I'm giving you guys like all the things you need to keep in mind. So September 21st, something like that. That would make a lot of sense to me. And then there could potentially be a correction around the late September timeframe too that gets quickly bought up. We saw this happen last year. And that would steal a lot of dominance for Bitcoin, but there could be a move down right here where like Bitcoin recovers in the short term. And then we have the Bitcoin dominance dropping into the end of this month where all the altcoins recover quite heavily. And then we'll see, we'll reassess. But you see this spike up. This is this move right here. Just keep in mind that the way that Bitcoin dominance tops out is like a blow off top. So we don't need to keep entertaining it past this point here in late September. I'm just like entertaining it up till the end of September, given the fact that unless this is an exact repeat of the last 3 cycles, which I'm fine with, I just don't like, it would be weird. It would be very weird to see us have a perfect repeat. Yeah, but that, in a way it's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? Like I kind of would rather take profits in the new calendar year personally. Like I would rather the altcoins top out like January 7th or something of 2026 just because it defers the taxes to the next calendar year and then yeah, but that's just business talk, you know. I know that's not reality. At the end of the day, like we're still on for the bull run in my opinion, and alt season is still on, and the fact that Bitcoin dominance is not breaking down yet is the first for us. But getting up into these higher levels that are exhausted, and every time Bitcoin started to get a little bit exhausted to the upside, we have a major push to the downside on Bitcoin dominance, and alts recover. And we see what it's done for XRP specifically. It's been very, very positive. Solana is also holding structure really well. We've seen, I think Binance Coin is already trading in price discovery. We saw the retest of 4,000 on ETH. Speaking of ETH, I think yeah, we had a really, really good monthly close for ETH, in my opinion. Like, pretty much pushed up there to the resistance. Let's see what this turns out to be. But we had this major resistance trend line, or sorry, major support trend line that we broke below, and we were seeing momentary resistance. And then it's like this last month of July was a full recovery. So the idea that we would have a bullish July was 100% accurate. With all of this recovery we saw in Ethereum and new all-time highs in XRP, we just started the new month of August, guys. So it's August 3rd. So the people that are getting worried, like just relax. You guys understand that a lot of recovery can happen in a short amount of time. As we get big corrections, we could see big recoveries to the upside. So what we would like to see here, now that we made it over to ETH, is holding the 786 fib, holding the golden pocket, and then potentially a weekly close above the 888 fib. And then I think we're on to higher highs. So given how underperforming ETH has been generally this whole cycle, I think that it's possible that we can see the break above 4,000 happen in this time frame, but I would be looking for something maybe like this. You see where we almost make it up to the new all-time high right here? It's super hard to see. But like we almost make it up to the new all-time high, and then we have a 30% correction in like a couple of days. Then here we hit the all-time high, and then we have again almost 30% correction in a couple of days. So when we make it close to the all-time high above the 888 fib, it could get a little spicy, you know? And I want you guys to keep that in mind for Ethereum, because that's how it's happened in the past. Just because you're making it up to the new all-time high doesn't mean you're going to blast straight through it. Also, over here we had a similar thing. I think XRP is doing this right now. So this is the Ethereum chart though, but you see XRP is currently doing what I believe is this. The same kind of like weird. So this is from June 2017 over to December. It's about 180 days. This is obviously a lot more extended, but if I was to take from the top to where we are now, it's about 200 days. And I think we're doing that, in my opinion. And this W could be in play for the final, for another impulse to the upside, which at the time for ETH was about 250%. If we were to see that move for XRP, by the way, above current highs, 250% would bring us where? It would bring us to about $12 to $13. So that's in my range of 10 to 15. Anyways, this type of move is very elusive because you can see off of that measuring down was about a 25% correction. Recently for XRP, we've had a 25% correction. Interesting how that goes, right? So yeah, this could be the next move for XRP where like it goes to 8 and then big correction, just a flash correction to wash people out, and then one final move. Something like that. And what we're doing here is what ETH did back here. But anyways, getting back to Ethereum, we're just back in a big horizontal trading range. I would like to see a weekly close above 4,000, but that's not to say that once we make it back up to all-time highs that we can't have some weirdness. So it could be something like this. It will feel like this, but instead of this M pattern breakdown, it will be a bear trap followed by a bounce. That's something I could see happening where we don't get a conclusive breakout for Ethereum until Q4 along with Bitcoin. And that could have everything to do with Bitcoin dominance just continuing to be strong and continuing to take some more time to head into its ultimate peak. Again, don't let that discourage you because ultimately with this type of move, we can be seeing insane things happen with a lot of other altcoins. ETH is just not the same part of the conversation that it used to be, you know, because of regulations, ETF now, there's a lot of other reasons. But ultimately, I think it's not until we start getting like real meme coin stuff going on that you're going to see retail care. Right now, retail's scared shitless of this market, and I think what just happened after the past 48 hours kind of proves that. Let's head over to XRP, even though I've kind of given you my take on XRP. But let me just check back in. Oh, it's been some time since I've checked this out. Okay, so we have made it back into this upper structure. We don't have a lot of trading range here between like 265 and 3. That would be good if we filled that out, but ultimately, yes, it is decoupling from this fractal that we had. That right there, of course, it's a fractal. At the end of the day, we did hit new all-time highs, but we're getting this washout right now. I do think we have one more move to come in the month of August for XRP, and I am expecting price discovery to initiate for XRP during this month. We have to see how this is going to go because this right here, in my opinion, is more technical. Like what we saw in Ethereum back in 2017, that example that I just gave you. And also this type of like double top thing, I know it's feeling like a repeat. I know it's like very hard to see, but this right there, very similar. And that move, when it swoops back up, you kind of want back tests of some of these local rejections, because this was a 200 or so day horizontal trading range that we were struggling with, right? So we're talking about we're coming up on 250 days now. This type of backtest right now is much healthier than what XRP typically used to do, which would just be like these Bart Simpson heads. I don't think it's going to turn out this way this time, even though it might look like that. It's not. It's not the same. I think what we're about to see is a bounce off of the prior, let's call it May full moon highs, and we're gearing up for the next major impulse to the upside. Let's look at this from a weekly perspective, turn off these drawings. To me, again, we're just on the weekly back testing some of the major resistance that we dealt with starting at the end of last year. This is perfectly normal. The bi-weekly, this right here is looking a little shady, but what we're still seeing is just a back test. So until we were to see like a bi-weekly close below $2, right now what we've done is we've started pushing into a final wave to the upside, or what could be final waves actually, because I'm still believing that XRP is likely to top with everything in an alt season. So if we're not going to get a major alt season move in August before the September timeframe, then we're going to get a momentary push into price discovery, followed by correction, and then one more push into the Q4 timeframe, which is something that XRP has done before. It did it right here. We get a major move, a little bit of final chop, and then we get up. And also we did something like that. If we were to just delete this over here, which was the SEC Ripple lawsuit bullshit, this move up right there, major impulse. Then we had our correction, and then we made one more impulse to the upside, final move. So keep that in mind, because that's kind of how I'm looking at this right now. I don't really feel there's anything to worry about with this recent move, again, happening over the weekend. Now let's get into just quickly looking at total back testing prior top. So we don't really need to talk too much more about that. Let's get into our altcoins today. We're going to start with Stellar Lumens. XLM has actually done something it's done before. And in the last cycle, this did this many times. You see right here, when it started to break out, so this is the C19 crash, right? This is a move into August, followed by a backup phase. So in Wyckoff, you would have your spring, followed by this move right here is called an SOS, or a sign of strength. And then this correction and cup that was formed is called a backup, and then you move into your buying climax. So this was all pure Wyckoff. Right here would be your spring move. Here would be your test. This would be your SOS. And what I could be seeing play out is this, which we could be complete with this move. But you see these sharp spikes on the XLM chart. This is just how it likes to move. It loves making these big moves up and then having a lot of quick corrections followed by another impulse. So I think we're completing that right now. And if I had to tell you the exact move we're doing, it's this. Let me put you on a 3-day chart and I'll show you what I mean. So this right here, all of this shit sideways is this. Then this major impulse right here is this. Then we had our major correction into the first low and then another lower low, followed by an immediate buyback. And then we had to deal with this moment. We're there, in my opinion. We're there. So with what's going on here, you can see we had a 50% correction. I bet you recently we've only even had a 30. Let's see. Oh God, on the money. So we've only had a 30% correction, dude. Imagine this shit right here. You can't even see it until you zoom in and measure it. It was a 50% correction, and over here this was like a 90. Yeah, look. Imagine an 88% correction. So what did we just see in XLM? We saw a 68% that would be this move here. And then I think we're pretty much getting to the end of this this move right here. And from the bottom, how long did it take to top out? I mean, I don't think this would be the same amount of days, by the way. Yeah, 50 days. I don't agree with that at this time. I think it'll take a little bit longer. Probably pushing up into October, but if you look at the time frame between this major peak and this major low, it's about 114 days. Here it took about 135, so we're already seeing some extension. But if we really do line it up with that final move to the downside to here, it was about double the time. It's 120 versus 210. You know, it's like pretty much double the time. So if here from this spike up to this next top, it took 80 days, call it maybe 160 days, sorta, okay? But if we were to entertain that, I know this seems very experimental right now, but I'm trying to kind of align all of this and think about how the market maker would want us to feel the most pain. It would be doing stuff like this, or this is so crazy to just have 50% corrections over and over and over again. Look at that, 50% here, 48% here, 48%, and then here 44, 43%. That's nuts to deal through that till it finally tops out. So I could entertain this idea for where we're at right now is very similar to the 2017 structure. And this major impulse right here would be obviously the final one, and we haven't experienced that yet. And this to me is more like here, and we're in the process of completing here. So the major levels to consider, in my opinion, we'll start with a basic fib. And I think the most extreme example for right now in the immediate short term would be anything above 2. I don't know if we're going to go there that soon, all right? But after we get around 2, we would want to start checking in with the weekly RSI and see where that's at. Because if weekly RSI is pushing into 90 to 95, you want to start getting ready to take some profits because the 1618 sits at about 350. This might not have been the cleanest fib pull that I have drawn, but it gives you a pretty decent idea of what these extremes would be in the data. Now, in the last cycle, we didn't actually break into price discovery. This is why I'm anticipating a true price discovery breakout this time around, because it's been coiling up and it is no stranger to the 40-cent territory. So this isn't weird, in my opinion. We do have this major impulse ahead. 350 would be incredible, obviously, because of where we're sitting at today. That's a 780% move. But what I think is if XRP is to make it between 10 to 15, we should make it to 3 on XLM. That would make the most sense to me. I think if XRP is going to make it to around, let's call it $8, then I do think we'll see $1.50 to $2 on XLM. So from where we're at right now, that would be somewhere around a 400% move. Okay? Remember, like we were talking about buying XLM all the way at these lows. Like I don't even know where my overall accumulation is completed, but I bet you it's around 9 cents or less. So everything that it's done so far already up 350%. I accumulated a little more recently just because I wanted to build a stronger position, and I feel a little better in that position than building like a $3 ETH position or XRP position, for instance, or putting money in Ethereum. I would feel much better placing it in XLM. Obviously, that's just my own strategy, my own take on the markets. You should do what is best for you, and this isn't financial advice. Now, as for the full move of this 1618 from this swing high to swing low, I'm not sure I could entertain that right now. That's a very exaggerated move. So an $8 XLM, I don't think so. I think we would need to have something really wild unfold in these markets for such a move to occur. And at this time, I don't want to entertain prices that are exaggerated like that, because already 350 is seeming like a bit of a stretch with where everything's at right now, because it's been the Bitcoin show. And as long as it's the Bitcoin show, you can't be expecting so crazy alt season like we did in the last cycle. And remember, in the last cycle, we had an insane alt season, and XLM was not a good performer. My thesis changed a lot for this cycle where I decided to be more heavy on things like XRP, XLM, etc. because I knew that these regulation things were coming and I knew that there would be more talk about things that are in those ecosystems comparatively to stuff like Ethereum, for example. But I mean, we're seeing Binance take off to new all-time highs right now, and that's incredibly impressive. So it's just showing us that the top cap projects are catching up to Bitcoin, and that's the sign of the start of an alt season. Remember that. But XLM, I'm feeling pretty good about with this recent correction. Nothing too weird here. I mean, we've shot through this 24 cent to 50 cent area way too quickly, in my opinion. So it's good that we're cooling off a bit. It's good that we're seeing this move back to retest some of the liquidity around the 35 to 30 or 35 to 40 cent territory. I think a bounce here would make a lot of sense. It's just we moved up way too fast on this initial breakout. Let's get over to Hedera. I would say this is a similar story for Hedera. One thing that you see from a technical perspective here is I had a fib pull. This is on a very small time frame, but I have my fib pull in reverse from around this level here to the first high. And this gave me where the 1618 would be on the downside, and that was where we got a perfect back test. And then even though we did have this bull trap, this would be like a UTAD in Wyckoff. It's a bull trap to the upside or up thrust. And then what you see is we came to swipe down through those through that liquidity again one more time, and we've back tested this initial correction right here of mid-July. So this whole move right here is starting to look like, we call it like a firmament dome because it looks like a dome, you know? But this is actually not bad to see because you're overall holding your supports and you're backtesting a technical level that you typically see a backtest on, especially with an altcoin, which is going to be exaggerated. So you never expect it to be perfectly on a particular target, but it gives you something to look forward to, which again, it could have avoided you from buying a top and just waiting for a 20% correction or so. So if I was to pull it perfectly down to that wick right there from wick to wick, and I'm just adjusting this for you live right now, you see that it would be perfectly picked up at the 1618. That's pretty cool. And I have this turned on, this setting. You could adjust it a little bit if you'd like. It's gonna, that's crazy. Like, yeah, typically you'd want things on linear if you're looking at a very short time frame. It's just madness how that perfectly tapped on that level of 22.225. So yeah, the one thing you don't want to see is a rejection around here and another lower low, because in my opinion, if we start closing 4-hour candles below 0.225, we're going to swipe all the way down to 20 cents. And that's just because there's thin air between 20 cents and the current low level. It's not really too dramatic, to be honest, because the total move from top to there would be about 33%. In crypto, that's very normal to have 30% corrections before we have 500% moves to the upside. So just think about that. Like right here, we endured a 44% correction before going up 140%. This is just kind of the world of crypto. Over here, this was probably a 30%. Yeah, you see, we had a 35% correction before it went up 800%. All right. So just keep that in mind. This is not really that weird what we're seeing. And when I zoom out, you could see how normal it actually looks. Yeah. Now looking at things on like a daily chart, this doesn't have any data of a prior cycle, really. We need to consider that. It's why it's been a tough bet, because we see that this was effectively launched like just leading up into the C19 crash time, and it only had one cycle. It followed Bitcoin though. Followed Bitcoin into the April-May timeframe, corrected at the same time, and then it did effectively make one more higher move into September, October, start of November, along with Bitcoin. So that means it's probably going to follow Bitcoin for the most part. As Bitcoin goes higher in the next phase, it would make sense for H bar to catch up to the prior all-time highs and then start to push into like the 70 cent level. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not convinced that could happen during this month unless something changes in the immediate short term. Again, we are dealing with this local correction, so we have to be open-minded to that Q4 timeframe always for a final blow off top in these markets. Because right now we haven't seen anything that's showing us that we're overextended on altcoins. We haven't seen anything that's showing us that we're too dramatically oversold like we did during like a true bear market. We're kind of just hanging out there in the middle right now. And when we look at the charts, we can see that's the case. Ethereum is trading in a horizontal trading range. We have H bar. We have, I mean, name an altcoin, right? Especially a lot of them from the last cycle and a lot of top coins too. So higher prices on H bar, I do think the 150 could be accomplished, and 150 would align likely with like the $8 XRP and the 150 to $2 XLM. It's like a Doge. Now, Doge just did something that I think was really important, which was a back test of a resistance. So we had over here this resistance that was formed at the end of last year. So December 2024, we broke out 220 something days later. We did effectively make a higher high than what we did in May. And then now we're back testing it perfectly on the 0.5 fib. So rejection, rejection, 3 times the charm, breakout, backtest, bullish. So the thing that would make it very bullish is a break above right here. So getting a weekly close, I would say above 30 cents, in my opinion, would be the best thing to happen. This type of correction is happening so dramatically because the breakout happened so dramatically. And I bet if you were to zoom in on this and count the days of bullish price action, it's like we're just doing it in reverse to the downside, and it's equally as dramatic. You know, we could see daily RSI peaked below 40 very fast. It's very soon. Just like we got overbought very soon. So trend-wise, we have low, higher low, and then right now off of this recent well, what would this be, a 70% correction? Yep. So we have a 72% correction, and then now we're reversing out of it. I believe this recent move was a little too quick, and that's why we're correcting too quick, but ultimately, structurally, we do not look bad on Doge. And the next major impulse, in my opinion, would be the 888 fib. So somewhere into this blow off top territory, and then trading between the 888 fib to 73 cents around the prior all-time high, to me, would make a lot of sense to see that go down. On the next price discovery phase for Bitcoin, that would be a rapid move to the upside, but just consider we've already had a very rapid move for Dogecoin back at the end of the year. You could see right here in just 8 days, it went up 200%. That's the kind of stuff that can happen in this environment, guys. So the outside of this trend line aligns with the dollar. Just keep in mind that a $1 Doge will be a psychological resistance. And once it clears a dollar, it should rapidly go to 2. Like, it would make a lot of sense for it to just quickly swipe through all that liquidity pretty fast. I mean, look over here. Once we got through about 10 cents, that's where 10 cents is. We just swiped straight through 10 cents for the first time. We were never there before. Funny enough, here we topped at a penny. Can you believe that? Doge used to be a fucking penny. And then it came all the way down to fractions of a penny. But right here, when we reached the almost 10-cent level, we got pushed back. This was probably a 70% correction. Maybe not so much, 60, 50%. And then when we broke above 10 cents concretely, it just shattered straight to 70 cents. So that's my take on a dollar. I think when we get to a dollar, there could be a little weirdness, but then ultimately it should just go straight to 250 to 3. So I'll check in with weekly RSI when we're at the $2 level, and that will help me determine, how to fully get out of this. Oh, and by the way, like, I will have red pills dedicated to exit strategy in the future, like when we get there. But for now, there's no point of going into that just yet. Okay, this is a new project I've never looked at. It's called Maple Finance. Literally, the ticker symbol is syrup. Okay, guys. What's going on here? Okay, so very interesting chart. It is kind of just there at the cutoff. Like we do want a full year of chart history, but we'll get through this today. This is actually good that we're covering this because this is like to help people understand why we don't want under a year of chart history. So guys, what we want you to do when we're looking at newer projects is make sure that on TradingView we have 1 year of chart history. And I'll show you how you could look up the coin. So you can go up here to the plus symbol. And for instance, we're going to type in Maple and USD next to it. And, oh no, sorry, is it syrup? Okay, and you want to look for the one that has crypto with the TradingView logo. That's how you know. Like later on, we're going to cover Monero. So it's XMR, USD. And you see it says Monero and then it has crypto with the TradingView logo. We're going to pull that up. We're going to do the same for Digibyte. So DGB, USD. I already have this one saved, but you can see the crypto and not from any other exchange. This crypto one is going to be an aggregate of all the data. Cool. So getting back to syrup coin. It's probably a bearish divergence forming, yeah. So we are having push up in price, RSI going lower until recently there was a breaking point, and you can see right here with this type of liquidity swipe where it was just a double top, and this could effectively turn into an M pattern, but it just depends right now with the overall market. Stuff like this is too new, and it's going to be just random communities that even care. There's nobody like doing TA on Maple Finance to figure out what's going on in the crypto market. You know what I mean? So it's like you're isolating it and you're looking at it as a potential isolated trade. And for me, it's kind of in that territory right now where you got to be careful if you're trading this on leverage for sure. Because right here, once you break literally the level that we're looking at, a quick swipe down to 35 cents can happen quickly. And then there's thin air pretty much all the way down to about 25 cents. I'm not saying that's the way this is going to go, but that could be how it goes in September. So if charts like this are looking pretty good in the short term, which like you can see from the scene, from the tariff crash to right now, pretty good, 280%. It's made a 500% move from the tariff crash lows. So it was like we needed that tariff crash to make a lot of projects that are like this to have that extra boost. But now that it's made it up here, the main question is, why should it be this valuable? Who cares? What's the actual value here? No, none of these altcoins have any value, dude. It's all just make believe. It's speculation, okay? So when we're getting, and I know that bothers people, but you gotta move on from being offended about that. Like, it's called fucking syrup coin, okay? So my point here is that this is all just being traded speculatively, and when it gets into price discovery to the upside, which this thing is, again, it's lacking chart history and it's trading at all-time highs. The big question is, why should it be here? Should I hold this? I'm already in profit. The market's getting scary over the weekend. I just want to sell it. I just want to lock in my profits. That's how a lot of retail are thinking, and retail are 100% of who's in this, okay? There's no BlackRock here. There's no Vanguard, State, whatever, insert institution. MicroStrategy isn't buying syrup coin. Okay, so the lower target of 24 cents, absolutely in the cards, as I mentioned, with the trick of pulling the fib in reverse. And if this is to hold support, it could still even go down to 35 cents. So I would like to see that level hold naturally if you're a bull. And right here, we're like towing the line. So we're right there. And I would still keep this 24-cent target on my chart here because to me, that's the level to consider in a bigger, larger correction, potentially in the September timeframe. Now, where it is, I'm sure we've cleared all, like there's really no, yeah, this is why I like more data. So we have this setting turned off intentionally. We've swiped through the 4236 all the way to the 5 spot. I typically don't expect past the 6. So that's another warning symbol that this thing's already made a major move to the upside. Again, why should it be this price? I think retail investors are going to sell this thing off. So I wouldn't buy this thing right now because it's in price discovery. That's like one of my number one things that I don't care for, is buying something at all-time highs. And the second thing is, in this environment we're in, there's no clarity at all. So if you have some random altcoin, you really got to be watching out, especially if it has no prior chart history. So interesting. Congrats to the people who've made it up here. And if you have made it up here, it's probably not wrong to lock in some of your profits, which a lot of maybe smart retail investors are doing right now. Okay, let's look at Quant. It's been some time. When was the last time I looked at Quant? What's going on here? Okay, yep, boring. So Quant's been holding this horizontal trading range now for a million years. I'm just joking about saying boring, by the way. Maybe boring is good. Okay, so during the tariff crash, we made it down to pretty much similar levels. We've bounced. We're about 80% up right now, topped in July along with Bitcoin. Also December peak. A lot of altcoins, that's still the case. It's the case for Doge, which we just looked at. Not everything did what XLM did, where it like recovered all the way back pretty much. But anyways, let me just check my sound. Okay, we're good. These white lines are everything on the quant chart. So now I'm going to lower them a little more just because you can see how clean it is on this 0.5 fib and how many rejections we were getting. This one I'm going to lower a little bit and I'm going to put to here. It's just a little range. So you can see bounce, final all-time high, gravitated back to this level. We broke below this level, and with those double rejections right there, bear market. Selling climax. There's your automatic rally. Here's your spring vibe, your test. And every time we get into the zone, except for once, which was on your automatic rally, which by the way, that's a bull trap to sell into because you sell off everything 90%. And then on this opportunity to get back in, you have a 300% move before it goes into a sideways trading range that could last years. It's 1,000 days since that moment. So that's something we'll touch on in the next bear market. Hopefully some of you will still be with me. I will be tracking it, of course. We are here for the long game. But looking at this recent move back to the 0.5 fib, that tells me that this is still stuck in an indecision mode for quant. And now we have this major support that broke into a resistance confirmed in December when all the altcoins went up, and that would tell me where the next likely major point would be for quant to the upside. So if we are to get expansion that comes in very rapidly in this month, which we saw like right there or right here or right here, for instance, then this could be a line to keep in mind around the 702 fib. But also we have the Q4 theory. And if it's taking a little bit longer to drag out, just consider that once you break above these two major lines, this trend line that used to be a support, which is now confirmed as a resistance, and this horizontal level, which marks the automatic rally top, that would be your major SOS. So here you have buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally, spring, test. This right here is moving into a SOS backup phase, and I don't know if it's going to complete this whole thing. So clean. It might just be a double top. Why do I say that? Because so many altcoins did this in the last cycle, including XRP. Oh, no, not even XRP. Sorry, XRP didn't even do that. What would be some good examples? I think we're about to look at one of them, Monero. Potentially even Digibyte. A lot of those OG coins from the 2017 cycle that had an amazing alt season, sans Doge, pretty much most of them did not go up into all-time highs. A lot of them only went up between the macro 786 to 888 fib. And that could be the case for quant this time around. I think it's the case for a lot of altcoins, guys. In my opinion, like Filecoin, for example, I know I've been looking at that a lot lately. A lot of the gaming tokens from the last cycle, like Sandbox and AMP and Gala, I don't think those are going to break into price discovery. I mean, at best, they make it into the golden pocket, but I've showed you that if they do make it into the golden pocket from where they're currently trading, they're like 1,000 to 2,000% away to get to that level. So you don't need price discovery, okay? But anyways, I've looked at this quant chart a lot over the years and I've decided to not invest in it just because I'm looking at limited data. And as far as my expertise in looking at charts, there's plenty of other opportunities. Again, this is not to say this is a bad investment. It's just been now kind of like an ETH play. I think even ETH has like been maybe a more solid hold. So I like to put most of my gambling in stuff that has a ton of ROI instead of gambling on stuff like this where it's like, yeah, we might be able to go up 288%. I mean, I could accomplish that in my XLM play. So why not just bet more on XLM? Again, I'm not telling you to not invest in quant. Maybe investing in quant might be better than some random shitcoin, meme coin. But generally, I don't think you need to over diversify. And the only time you should over diversify, not financial advice, is when you're playing venture capital with very small amounts of money that have crazy upside potential. I just don't think there's an argument for a $1,000 quant. Who the fuck's gonna buy it at that level? You know, people are calling XRP expensive at $3, right? You have to think like retail investors think like this. Retail investors are very like much more in the penny pinching kind of game. This is why the stuff that's like fractions of a penny that's available on places like Coinbase, for example, that's where a lot of retail dive in because it feels like a low barrier to entry and it's not quote unquote expensive. But anyways, I know that you can get fractions of this stuff. I get it. You know, I'm just speaking to retail who don't know anything about that. So it's a one thing to bring up. There's a psychological thing at play here. Wow, crazy. Litecoin and Quant are the same price, like literally almost identical price. It's pretty weird. Let's go to Digibyte since we have two more projects to look at. Okay, so Digibyte, this is the thing I brought up before, how it was effectively a double top. I mean, yes, we went technically a little bit higher, but like how much? 20% on an altcoin, guys. That's a double top. And Bitcoin, for instance, made effectively a double top in 2021 between this peak over here and this peak over here. So this is a double top too. That peak to that peak. And that's what I meant about quant. Like at best, maybe it peaks around the prior all-time high, but look at the amount of time that it spends above the 888 fib. Or sorry, I should pull it like this. I'm just going to double click. You want to turn this setting on because this is a longer time frame. But look at the time that it spends between the 888 and the like going into a bear market moment. This will shock some people. A month. It only spends a month up here. So you don't have a lot of time to get out. And when you look at like the optimal days to get out, 4, you got maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks to like optimally get out, because right here I bet this was like a 30% correction. Look, that's a 45% correction just right there before an M pattern forms with that like really micro double top. But yeah, this could be the case for quant, for example, where it just makes it up back to a little bit higher than the prior all-time high. I think Cardano did a similar thing. It might have went like 50 or 60% higher than the prior all-time high. But here we are on Digibyte, man. Wow, beaten and bruised all the way at bear market lows pretty much. So this is like a thing about relevance. This is not relevant anymore. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like if this thing can make it back up to the 786, it's a 1000%, it's a 900% move. And look at how sharp this thing can move. Like we're talking off the C19 crash, this thing went up 800% in a straight line, and then right here an additional 700% in less than 3 calendar months. Here we swiped through the same liquidity in 2 months, 1800%. I mean, this is a very, like once alts start moving, this thing starts moving. So because there's other plays out there that'll do something quite similar to this, Yeah, I invested in this a little in the last cycle. I wouldn't personally be touching this right now. It's just nobody knows, nobody cares. It used to be a thing for sure. It was a big deal back in the day. OG crypto people definitely know because, like, any stage you bought this in, if you got in before this breakout, look at what this thing went on to do. So 50,000% move. Here you already got 20,000. Getting out at the top over here, 25,000%. And that's buying the upper end of the range. Imagine getting in on this pivot here. 200,000%. 200,000%. It's never going to do that again. Cryptos, I don't think, are going to do that ever again anymore. That was when crypto, nobody knew about it. Now a lot of people know about it. It's popular, it's famous. So, yep, I would entertain that this move up to here around this 6 to 8 cent level is possible. 6 to 8 cents. Okay. But as of right now, there's really not too much TA to say because we've just been holding this horizontal level at the bottom for 1,140 days. So, yeah, I will not personally be investing in this, but there is a large potential for this to make it back up to the golden pocket in an alt season. Now we have Monero. Whoa, no way. Okay, it's been some time since I've looked at this. Wow, we made it up to the fucking all-time high pretty much. Nearly. This is great to see. So Monero kind of looking like the silver chart. 2018 high, double top in 2021. So you guys see what I mean? Like there were a bunch of charts that had these double tops in cycle 1 to cycle 2. Cool. I guess Tron also looks similar to this, right? Pretty much. All right. So Monero, somebody cares again. Interesting. Where do you even buy Monero? I haven't like it's been a I remember when I first got into crypto though, like Monero was the thing. It's like privacy coins, bro. And then remember Pirate Chain did really well and then it didn't do really well. Oh my god, look at this breakout on Monero. That's crazy, dude. Oh my goodness. Just anybody who invested in 26, if you bought January 1st, 2016 and sold January 1st, 2 years later, you're up 100,000% literally. Fucking craziness, dude. So cool those opportunities existed back then. Like crazy. Yeah, so now we're in the sideways range, double top, triple top kinda. It's looking very like similar to the silver chart, and a triple top is bullish technically. So what's going on here? Oh, good. All right, so we're getting some resistance at the 888. That's perfectly fine. We would like to see obviously a weekly close potentially above this $470 territory. I think that would cement, or no, let's call it 500 because that's a very clean psychological level, and that's where we got rejected in the May alt season of 2021. I know I said it before about quant, about the $1,000 seeming silly just off of the psychological. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think this is gonna make it up to 1,000. It's really not much though. It's 230%. It's not much. But yeah, God, that would be such a bummer if it only makes it up to a triple top. I don't think that's the case though. I think the 750 to 1,000 is in the cards, and where I think would be a better fib to pull is here. Yeah, that 777 or around 700, I would feel comfortable with calling for that as the next all-time high. That would make sense to me. Yeah, I wouldn't want to get in Monero right now. Personally, like it's up 170% from the bear market. It's also about 170% potentially the next price discovery all-time high. And I can get so much more ROI in so many other places, including XRP, not against XLM, or sorry, not against XMR, Monero at all. I don't actually believe in privacy coins, though. I don't think anything on the internet's private. I've talked about this a lot in 2021 when I started my YouTube channel because I got a lot of questions from conscious beings about Pirate Chain and Monero and Darrow and a couple of these other privacy coins. And I've learned too much about the internet to know that it's all fake. Even VPNs, these are not hiding you. They're not doing anything. Like, nothing on the internet is private. Once you use it, you're signing up to allow the powers that be see what you do. Like, so I think we kind of believe in something, and therefore with that belief we invest accordingly, but that could sometimes be devastating to learn the truth of things. Anywho, this is still very impressive for the fact that it's an OG coin that has now made it back up to these levels. It's very reminiscent of how XRP has recovered, even though there's been way more ROI on the XRP play, for example, but I'm still impressed regardless. And for the move up to potentially 770, that is also equally impressive. So for those who are already invested in this and holding this, like, that gives you a good kind of idea of where to potentially be taking profits. And then again, we always want to check in with a weekly RSI to see if we start getting into that 90 territory, which, by the way, we just recently got close to it and then since have seen quite a pullback. Nothing too crazy, but about 30%. So what most things have seen lately, pretty rapid 30% pullback. So it still has crazy moves for sure. But cool. It's so cool to check in on this project. It's been a while since I've looked at since I've looked at Monero. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap up this podcast here. We're looking pretty good. Let's see this weekly close above 114K. To me, that would be a very nice thing to get. We've recently backtested the late May top. Sorry, we're on the weekly chart. That's why it looks so crazy. Let me look at this one. This is cleaner. Yeah, we've since retested this SOS move in alignment with here, getting back up to the upper end of the range. Now we've come to backtest that level. I think that's very good to see. We're about 75% through Mercury retrograde. We'll have that concluding next Monday effectively. So we'll have the upcoming full moon on Friday, followed by Saturday, sorry. I think then we have the red pill the following day, and then Mercury stationing direct the following Monday. So about a week out from now. So remember, Bitcoin is likely to recover back to where it started on Mercury retrograde on July 18th, and that's around 118K, which we were holding sideways for a couple of weeks. So right back into that zone, and it would look like just one of these corrections and recoveries that we've got back in the month of June and even at the end of June. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. I appreciate every single one of you. Again, I have this flash sale going on over on this private link that's available only for you guys here in our mastermind community. It's at watersabove.com/MM2025. And you can use this promo code at checkout to get the biggest discount available. This is no longer available to the public, so there's still a little bit of time left. Really am grateful for your support if you end up picking up one of these courses over on my website. And again, I have these packages available, but these packages, you don't need to use this promo code here because these promo codes for each of these packages will give you an even bigger discount. So I appreciate and I'm grateful for every single one of you. I'm wishing you all an amazing rest of your day in the Matrix, and I will have a weekly update coming out in a couple of days for you guys to recap everything that's happened in this red pill. Much love.